Welcome to the Lessons for Luca podcast. I'm your host, Michael D. Santi, author of New Man Emerging, transformational trainer and coach, and most importantly, I'm Luca's dad. This episode, I want to talk about something that's clearly important to me, hopefully obviously important to me. That topic is parenthood. Now, I am no expert in parenthood. However, I do want to speak about my own personal experience. I do think that I have some background to contribute and add some influence and impact, and hopefully some key tips and tools that you could use in your parenthood journey. If you're not a parent, I think there's some value in here just for relationships overall. I'm not incredibly public, but also not deliberately private about the fact that my wife and I really struggled to get pregnant and start a family. It took us close to 3 years to have our son. We ran into a lot of challenges and some issues that some of it we foresaw and some of it we were blindsided by. But we stayed committed on the journey, and 3 years later, our son was born. And I bring that up for two reasons. The first reason is that until we were struggling to get pregnant, we didn't realize how many people were struggling to get pregnant. It was one of those things that when we were in it and in that journey, that people even close to me that I had no idea could relate and sympathize because they actually struggled with it too. So I bring that up with the intention that if you are struggling to get pregnant, if you are struggling to start a family, you are not alone. I was really shocked how many people that I knew close to me that actually had similar challenges that we did. So I bring it up for that reason. The second reason I bring it up is in that 3-year span, I didn't realize how long it was going to take for us to actually start a family. So I would read and research quite a bit about fatherhood and parenthood and certain techniques and tips and skills and you name it. And I always thought, well, soon I'll be a dad, so I might as well get as much research and reading in as I could. And little did I know that my research period was going to be about 3 years. A lot of what I learned or researched or found, I kept and it worked, and some of it just became completely obsolete the moment my son was born. And I think a lot of the times parenthood is one of those things where it's all a theory until you're actually experiencing it and doing it. It reminds me of Mike Tyson's famous quote, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face." Part of me thinks he actually was referencing parenthood when he made that quote. And if he wasn't, it's completely apropos to it. I think part of us has this romanticized version of what it's going to look like, and then we're met with the reality. And there's some friction there that we need to reconcile. So I bring all that up because in my research and personal research, and then also personal experience, I think I've developed something that, again, also too with my coaching, that there's a value, an overarching value. Now, how you use it is completely up to you. But I've created over the last few years, what I call the 4 pillars of parenthood. And I think although they are stable, they're going to be unique to wherever you are in your parenting journey. If you have young kids, it'll be potentially more apropos than if your kids are older and out of the house. But there's certain pillars that I've noticed and found, not only in, being a father to my son, but also to the dads that I coach personally and their relationship with their sons and their daughters. The 4 pillars of parenthood, and I'll give you them right off the bat, and then I'll break each one of them down. But the 4 pillars of parenthood are provide, presence, proximity, and play. Provide, presence, proximity, play. And we'll break each one down, starting with provide. Provide, for a lot of parents, and especially I think for a lot of fathers, the default to provide is to provide financially. And although that is part of providing, providing isn't limited to finances only. I think there's a part of all of us as parents where innately we want to give a better life or a better resource or a better financial life to our children than we had. So I think that's an innate and natural response, that I want to be able to provide more resource to my children than I was given when I was young. I find that completely instinctual and not uncommon and not unnatural. But when when finances become the only pillar of providing, we start to get limited to the other areas where it's so essential that we're providing. Providing, the pillar of provide, is providing safety, providing leadership, providing mentorship, providing wisdom, providing emotional safety, providing trust and dependability. These are all elements of providing. To only focus on providing financially and not create a safe space where our children are safe to come to us with their challenges, with their fears, with their frustrations, with their development, it becomes incredibly limited. Also, too, by only focusing on providing financially, it also will tend to unconsciously rob from the other three pillars that I'll go over. So providing absolutely means providing resource and finance, but it also means providing so much more. Providing a safe place to play and to grow and to learn and to mess up and fail and try again. To provide the emotional safety that our children feel safe enough to come and open up to us, that they're willing and trusting enough that to be vulnerable in front of us, that we could actually, as parents and caretakers, hold their discomfort, to actually not suppress it or push it out or tell them they're wrong for it, but to actually be present to their growth, through their development, through their their trials and their tribulations and their fears and their growth and their discomfort and all the crazy navigating that takes. That is part of the provide pillar. To provide is so fundamental for caretakers to our children, that we don't want to just limit it to finances, but we want to actually broaden it to, am I providing a place where my children are safe to come to me, that my children are safe enough to open up to me, to reveal what's going on. And if we have little children like I do, constantly providing, obviously, that financial resource, but just providing an overall happy, healthy environment in the home. It is critical. Our children, especially when they're young like mine, they are constantly downloading and interpreting and absorbing the energy that's in the household, the spirit that's in the household, the love that's in the household, or the fear or the resistance that's in the household. So for me and my wife, the provide pillar is so much about what is the environment of love and connection and of safety that we're providing our son. And with his limited language and his limited speech and his limited communication and limited interaction, he's downloading more of our state and our way of being and our energy and the love between us and to him. He's actually picking that up way more than just our words. So that's the first pillar of parenthood, is the pillar of provide. Second pillar of parenthood is the pillar of presence. We live in a culture right now where our greatest commodity is our attention. And it is constantly being pulled, distracted, and exploited. And so presence and the ability to give something or someone our undivided attention is a skill and a muscle that needs to be worked over and over and over again. We are so inundated with shiny objects and sexy things and distractions and deadlines that we forget that one of the greatest gifts we can give each other is our presence. I tell my students all the time, if you want to improve anything in your life, give it your undivided attention. If you want to improve your marriage, give your marriage your undivided attention. If you want to improve your financial well-being, give your financial well-being your undivided attention. You want to improve your health, your parenthood, your relationships, give them your undivided attention. When we give something our undivided attention, we're stating and declaring its importance to us. So by giving something our undivided attention or someone our undivided attention, we start to frame a level of focus that people get it. They get when you're fully engaged. They get when you're not distracted. They get when you sit down at a table and you put your phone away. They get that you're there with them. That is so exponentially important to our children. That when we're with them, undistracted, fully present, focused with them. If you think about the last time you were at dinner with a friend or on a meeting and you notice people scrolling or taking a call or checking out, and they're there in, their body is there physically, but mentally or even emotionally, they're not there. They're not present. They're checked out. Imagine how that feels for us as adults. For our children, it's 100 times more important that when we're with our children, that they are actually absorbing our undivided attention. When we are young and developing as kids, really from ages 0 to 10 and even past, our main motivating factor to really develop a sense of who we are and who we are to ourselves and to others and to the world, our main motivating factors from our caretakers is to get love, attention, acceptance, affection, and approval. That's really our main motivating factors when we're young. That I understand what's valuable and not valuable when I get love and receive love, and when it's withheld from me. I'm actually creating my entire worldview around, am I getting love, attention, acceptance, affection, and approval? What am I doing when I get it? And what am I doing when I'm not getting it or losing it? Attention is a massive, massive motivating factor for our children. So when we are present with them, undistracted, they're actually absorbing a sense of themselves, a sense of worth, a sense of value, a sense of esteem by us simply being present. 30 minutes of undivided attention to your children is more important than 3 hours of distracted attention to your children. That when we're together, but it's diluted, people feel that, and our children feel that exponentially. They know when you're just going through the motions, and they know when you're fully engaged. That's how their nervous system is built, and it's how sensitive their nervous system is to engage with the world around them. And so undivided attention is one of our greatest commodities, not just in parenthood, but with each other overall. People know when you're engaged, and people know when you're checked out. People know when you're going through the motions, and people know when you genuinely and sincerely care. The way we show that, we pay attention. We're present. We're here. We're now. We're engaged. Don't misconstrue or misinterpret longevity for a job well done. Again, I would rather spend 30 minutes of undivided attention with my family than 3 hours of scattered, distracted attention with them. When we give our focus and our undivided attention to something, we put a level of importance to it, and people get it, especially our kids. Third pillar of parenthood is the pillar of proximity. Proximity is being there physically and doing the little touches and check-ins. When our children are young, especially my son's age right now, 2, 3, 4, as they're exploring the world, as they're exploring their limitations, they are constantly looking to us to see, engage. Am I safe? Are you in the room? There's certain moments and opportunities when my son is about to do something maybe risky, maybe foolish, maybe a little dangerous, where before he does it, he'll actually look to see and read my face. Is this appropriate? Should I be doing this or not? That's proximity. There is an invaluable pillar and an invaluable component of proximity, of just being together, being in the room, doing little things together. Those little touches, meals together, little small rituals together. When our children are young, you just being around is actually strengthening, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's strengthening that caretaker attachment. That is the most critical attachment in the human development and in a human's life, is that original caretaker attachment. The way we strengthen that caretaker attachment is we spend time together. We eat meals together. We go on walks together. We play together. We get on the floor together. We do these little micro rituals and small touches over and over and over again. Proximity, I realize proximity can be a big challenge for military families or for families that travel and that are, do stints away from each other. I say that, I highlight that, and I say that with sensitivity. But one of the greatest skills that we can learn in proximity is what's called collecting. That when we collect with our children, it's really a metaphor of that is like putting bookends on the day. A lot of us wake up frantic, rushing, get to the schedule, check off the lists, and we start the day in high anxiety. Collecting is really the skill that actually starts the day off before we jump into all of our to-dos. We just take a moment together. My son is young enough now. We take a moment to laugh, to cuddle, sit on the couch, have a little milk, change a diaper, but we micro ritual the morning. That's a touch. That's proximity. Psychologically to our children, it actually signifies the beginning of the day. Then, at the end of the day, we also want to create another ritual, another micro ritual. So for you, wherever your children's development is, whether that's bath time or reading a book or spending time at night, meals together, kind of a ritual that has diminished quite a bit in our culture as of the last few generations. Those psychologically help our children turn off the day. They're bookends on the day. Proximity is power. Proximity, just simply being together, forming these micro rituals, these dependabilities, these things to predict and look forward to. Again, make it relative and appropriate to the season of life and development that your children are in. Mine is in the toddler phase, so our micro rituals are based around the accessibility and the development of our son. If your children are a little later in life, are communicating more, and they're 8, 9, 10, or even the teens, proximity is power. It also will diminish naturally in the teenage years. In our teenage years in our development, we are naturally actually starting to break free a bit of that caretaker attachment and move more towards counter will and autonomy, where our children are learning a little bit more about their independence, their sovereignty, and a little bit about their own authenticity and their own autonomy. So if your children are in their teenage years and you feel that bond is pulling a bit, that's natural. But it's really, really important, especially for the parents with young children, that we are strengthening that caretaker attachment when they're young as strongly as we can. That's why I'm spending this episode on the pillars that actually strengthen it when we're young. So proximity is power. Being together being in the room together, micro rituals together, collecting together, bookending the day together, super, super important for our children's growth, development, and also sense of self and self-esteem. Fourth pillar of parenthood is the pillar of play. Play is incredibly unique to mammals. All mammals play. Whether we're human beings or a blue whale, all mammals play. It's one of the things, especially when we're young, that we actually learn faster and more effectively when we play. Our children, there's a study I read recently where if to teach a young kid a habit could require something around, and I'm broadening these numbers, but it would require something around 100 reps for a young person to develop a habit. Unless they were having fun, then it would only require about 20. So when we play, we're activating a whole different neural pathway and synapses to the brain that when we're having fun, playing, or relaxed, we actually learn and download far more effectively and quickly. When it comes to play is simply, the way I put it, is get on the floor with them. As parents, and I think the generation above me, I forget where I read this in some of my studies and some of the books. They do this, there's this great analogy that I live by in parenthood, which is simply be a gardener, not a woodworker. The generation ahead of me, my father and his father before him, they really looked at parenthood as more like a woodworker. Like, here is this piece of raw material, and it's my job to shape it into something. Whereas a gardener is, here is this seed, and my job is to make sure that the environment is healthy and susceptible enough for that seed to become a sprout, that sprout to become a stalk, that stalk to become a tree, that tree to sprout leaves, and that those leaves to sprout fruit. That this seed has in it its own unique destiny. And my job as a caretaker and as a parent is to make sure that the environment of that seed has everything it needs to thrive. That it's not my job to tell that seed what it needs to be. It's my job to provide, to be present, to be in proximity, to play, and to really cultivate the environment that seed meets its destiny. And that's the pillar of play. When, very simply, I could state, get excited about what your kids are excited about. Rather than try to convert them into what you think they should want, have, or be into, go to where they are. Go to what lights them up. Go to what they're passionate about and what they're excited about, and really what gets their engines turning. That may be very similar to you, and that may be a massive departure from you. And if you have more than one kid, you probably realize they're very different. That one is really into this and one is really into that, and the other is into something completely different. That's natural. Go to where they are. If you think about us as adults, I don't know what the psychological term is, but if you think about us as adults, where if you expose someone to something that you're passionate and interested in, and they get excited about it, you actually feel lit up and enthusiastic from their enthusiasm. If I brought you to my family's home and put out a spread of all the food that I grew up on and my cultures, and I put it, and you've never seen any of it, and you started tasting it, and you were like, oh my God, how have I made it this far in life and never eaten food like this? And you got enthusiastic and lit up about it. That would actually double my pleasure and excitement and enthusiasm. Imagine what that's doing with our children. When we get lit up and excited and passionate about what our kids are into, we're actually allowing them to stimulate their imagination, their creativity, their aliveness, their enthusiasm. That is vital to their growth. If I don't meet them, or if we don't meet our children with what lights them up, we're actually reinforcing them to diminish their enthusiasm. And that's detrimental. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Nothing great in life has ever been accomplished without enthusiasm." So imagine if, when our children are young and we're suppressing or denying or trying to snuff out their enthusiasm, they tend to delay it because they feel rejected. They tend to try to put it away. They tend to just, look to you for the opportunity to say, like, is this acceptable or not? And if they're getting declined or rejected or denied by it, they're going to start to actually diminish their imagination and diminish their creativity. One of my biggest jobs as a parent is to prepare my son for the future, to protect him emotionally, physically, and spiritually. But also, one of my greatest jobs and roles as a parent is to keep my son's imagination alive as long as I possibly can. That as he gets older, he doesn't lose his imagination and his spirit and his creativity, that he actually brings that innocence and that aliveness to his adult life. I'm not trying to beat it out of him or suppress it out of him, to harden him, to engage in a world that's cold. I want to allow or encourage my son to protect where he needs to protect, and then be vulnerable where he gets to be vulnerable, and imaginative where he gets to be imaginative. We want to make sure that one of our arching factors and arching goals is to keep our kids' imagination alive as long as we possibly can. So those are the 4 pillars of parenthood. I would definitely urge that it's not a 5th pillar, because I think it bleeds into all of them, but to put at the center of the 4 pillars of parenthood, patience. Patience is critical to parenthood. It's not its own pillar because it's required in all the pillars. It is really the nucleus of all the pillars of parenthood, is to be patient. I always found it interesting in Corinthians in the Bible where they say love is patient, love is kind. I always found it fascinating that love is patient is the first characteristic. People know when you're patient with them, and people know when you're losing your patience with them. And our children 1,000 times so. Patience is one of the greatest demonstrations of love that we have. So to be patient with each other, to be patient with our partners, our spouses, our husbands and our wives, to be patient with our children as they develop and as they grow, it is a massive commodity. It really connects and ties together all the pillars of parenthood. To be patient with yourself, to be patient with your partner, to be patient with your children. Although it's hard, although it's challenging, although sometimes we're fried and we haven't slept and we just want to move things along, remember that one day there won't be Legos to step on. There won't be, diapers to change. There won't be hugs when they're crying in the middle of the night. Eventually, all of these things, they pass on. They're impermanent. So to have patience now is really to engage with nature, plant that seed, nurture it over and over again, create the environment over and over again, and allow nature to help create the destiny of that seed. That's patience. Patience is not passive. It's not stepping back. It's not just hoping things get better. Patience is proactively working with nature, working with the development of where our kids are, where their understanding is, where their limitations are, where their capacity is, where their growth is, and where their breakthrough is. Nature has its own rhythm that's going to bring our children into adolescence and adolescence into adulthood. And our job with these 4 pillars of parenthood and patience is to just shepherd them into their adulthood as sound and grounded and sturdy and dependable and have integrity and confidence and esteem. Fill that cup and that bucket as much as we possibly can. And so I hope these 4 pillars of parenthood are effective for you, valuable for you, and worth implementing. I have known it in my own experience, and I hope that they're valuable for you as well. As always, thank you for being on this journey with me. Until we meet again, be a good man, live a good life, and determine each of those for yourself.